on the Oklahoma Guru's mind today? Well, it's just another testimony of the validity of Joseph Smith and his prophetic calling. So, back in about 1999 or whatever it was, I was reading the Bible. Now, I can't remember if it's Paul's writings or it was Peter's writings, but the words quickening of the Spirit came to me while I was reading it. It was on the page that I was reading. And so when I read that, and I was reading the Bible exclusively whenever it came to validating Joseph Smith's prophetic calling and whether his doctrine was true or not. And I'll remind you that when it came to the Doctrine and Covenants, I hadn't even opened it up, basically, at that time. I was very much into investigating the church and trying to find different answers to my questions. And I'd read the Bible, and I'd ask questions, or I'd find questions by reading the Bible, and of course I'd pray. Well, this day I was reading either Paul or Peter's writings, but it talked about quickening the Spirit. And then all of a sudden it opened up in my mind about the resurrection and how the physical laws of the universe applied to the resurrection. And so I was like, okay, well, AJ, I would say, I thought to myself, this is nuts. This is just thoughts just randomly running through your head. But it sounded wonderful. But it was still, I'd not had a lot of schooling when it come to physics or anything scientific or anything like that. But I was starting to understand. I'd taken electricity in school and had some electrical theory and a little bit, but I didn't even do good in those classes either. So I really didn't. I wasn't really prepared for what was being put in my mind. So again, I thought, you're just talking. You're just thinking crazy stuff. But it kept on running in my mind. But about 3 months later, I was, I continued reading the Bible and stuff like that. But also, I was on doing emails, debating people about different things in the church. And so I had one who quoted a verse from the 88th section. Now, I think it was somewhere in the middle of the section, but I can't remember exactly. But it certainly wasn't the first half. But he was trying to prove to me that Joseph Smith was not a prophet of God, using some kind of verse in there. And so I read it, and I thought to myself, well, let's see what the context is of this chapter, instead of just picking a random verse out of the air and applying it and trying to deviate from what's really being talked about in the chapter. Well, as I started reading it, about the 4th verse, it was laying out the resurrection and how it worked. And I was amazed by the fact that the same words that came into my mind 3 months prior to that was laid out right there in writing by the prophet Joseph Smith. He talked about, and this is what came in my mind 3 months before that, and I'd never heard it before, I'd never read it before, but just by the words quickening of the Spirit in the Bible, it said that if you keep the celestial law, you'll receive a celestial body. And if you keep the terrestrial law, then you'll receive a terrestrial body. And telestial, you'll keep the telestial law, you'll receive a telestial body. And this, I was floored. I was so happy. This was a validation of what I understood 3 months prior to that. Now let me explain to you a little bit about this. Again, I set my truth by the physical laws of the universe and how they apply and how they affect me or oneself. And here's how this works. See, in our doctrine, we are told that Jesus Christ can go to the terrestrial kingdom, but also can reign in the celestial kingdom. And that those who have a celestial body can also go to terrestrial kingdom, but the problem is those who are in the terrestrial kingdom cannot go into the celestial kingdom, and telestial can only abide in the telestial world. So how does this work? Well, it is by speed, force, and intensity. See, if I were to take a 1,000-watt light bulb, and I would take a 10-watt bulb, then what would happen if you lit them both in the same room in close proximity, you'd basically get no effect from the 10-watt bulb, because a 1,000-watt bulb would basically be all the light that you could that you would know that was appearing in the room. And another thing is, if you take a laser that can cut 6-inch steel and you put it directly across from a pointer laser, then the speed, force, and intensity of the laser that cuts the steel would completely annihilate the pointer laser because of speed, force, and intensity. Now, in the story that Jesus gives about Abraham and the rich man and Lazarus, the poor man, and how there's a gulf between heaven and hell. Now, Lazarus was requested by the rich man to come to hell and touch his finger in a drop of water and touch it to his tongue. And Abraham said, I cannot, because there's a gulf. So, do you understand that we can only travel within a certain limit of our force, intensity, and speed? This is how we see colors. Colors work on different force, speeds, and intensity, called frequencies. If you take yellow, a yellow color, then it would have a greater force, speed, and intensity that we see with our eyes. And with darker colors like reds and blacks and browns, they travel at a much slower rate. To separate the colors, that's so that our eyes can distinguish from one color to another. And in God's kingdom, this is how He sets up His gulfs, His division between the different kingdoms, is by the amount of force, speed, and intensity one is given, and the resurrection will receive, and it enables him or her to travel respectively in their dimension, and if they are in the celestial dimension, then they can travel into the terrestrial dimension. But the terrestrial will only be able to associate with them for just a moment. It's not like a full-on established well, we'll get past that because I think I'm getting a little too far. But we know that the terrestrial cannot enter into the celestial kingdom, but the celestial can, again, enter in to the terrestrial because of speed, force, and intensity. This is the most amazing thing that I've ever read from Joseph Smith. Now, electricity had been somewhat established in the 1770s or so with Faraday and Volta, who had, did some work on it and some scientific studies, and there was some batteries that were being used for different functions. But Joseph Smith lived in the backwoods of New York. His family did not have electricity. They had coal lamps or candles or whatever to see by. So they could have never known, he could have never known the science and the physical laws of the universe and how light was produced and its intensities and frequencies based on colors. So for me, this is a validation that this was a man who was speaking with God, because only God could have known these things at that time. And for those, this is a little bit how this works. The more that we are influenced by the Spirit, the greater that are the greater light that we will be able to. Let's try this again. Every once in a while I'm going to stumble a little bit because this is a complicated subject and I'm trying to give it to you as straight as I can, as simple as I can. I can talk about it, and it's always said that the more intelligent a man is, the easier it is for him to put it in layman's terms. So I'm not a very intelligent man, but I do my best to explain in the best way I know how. Again, if you are influenced by the Spirit, by reading the scriptures, prayer, going to the temple, taking the sacrament, and all the other functions that embody the holiness of God, then you are going to be able to have a greater influence and change whenever you are resurrected. But those who have no condition with God or no relationship with God, then they will never see light, and they will never receive light. I think that's the best way to see it. So those who see light and want light will be enlightened, and those who seek after darkness and only want darkness, they will receive no light in the resurrection. So I hope that clarifies it a little bit. I don't like editing anything out. I like this to be all natural, so you'll never see me try to do anything special with the videos, because I want to be genuine and as I possibly can. And I'm glad I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it helps. And if you wish to, go ahead and drop me a line in the comment section. You can also press like if you want, share, subscribe. Well, all I know is you guys have a blessed day. It's been good talking to you. It's the Oklahoma Guru signing out.